Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadasya yata nivyad itaratas chartesu vigyaswarat. Tene Brahma Hidaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha. Tejo Varimedam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha. Damna Smina Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva. O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, destruction, and sustenance of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. Yes. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him because he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitravotra paramo nimatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamani krite kimva purer ishvaraha sadyohride avarudyate tra kriti bihi sususubhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam sukumukad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhur Aho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayam Taksto Bhadrani Vidunoti Srahitsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies a devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge as he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees. He becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, text number 11. Apina Suridas Tatata Bandava Krishna Devataha Justa Shruta Vayadava Sapuryam Sukhamasate. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My uncle, you must have visited Dwarka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Shri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The particular word Krishna Devataha, that is, those who are always wrapped in the service of Lord Krishna, is significant. The Yadavas and the Pandavas, who were always wrapped in the thought of the Lord Krishna and his different transcendental activities, were all pure devotees of the Lord like Vidura. Vidura left home in order to devote himself completely to the service of the Lord. But the Pandavas and the Yadavas were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna. Thus, there's no difference in their pure devotional qualities. Either remaining at home or leaving home, the real qualification of a pure devotee is to become wrapped in the thought of Krishna favorably. That is, knowing well that Lord Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupala, and other demons like them were also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna. But they were absorbed in a different way, namely unfavorably, or thinking him to be a powerful man only. Therefore, Kamsa and Shishupala are not on the same level as the pure devotees like Vidura, Pandavas, and the Yadavas. Maharaj Yudhisthira was also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his associates at Dwarka. Otherwise, he could not have asked all about them from Vidura. Maharaj Yudhisthira was therefore on the same level of devotion as Vidura, although engaged in the state affairs of the kingdom of the world. Srila Prabhupada Patita Bhavana Ki Jai. So therefore, we see everything depends on what's going on in the mind. If the mind is preoccupied with mundane affairs, then one is not in rapt, or does not have rapt attention. Rapt means like complete. You can't take your mind off Krishna. So, or at least you see everything in relationship with Krishna. The material concept is to see everything separate from Krishna, or having no connection with Krishna, or not believing even Krishna exists. So you don't see any correlation between the material world and Krishna. But the devotee always sees everything in relationship with Krishna. He doesn't see anything separate from the Lord. So whether something is so-called good or something is so-called bad, the devotee never loses sight that Krishna is the cause of everything, and nothing can happen without his desire. And therefore, if the devotee sees in that way, they never take their attention away from Krishna. Their attention is never taken away from Krishna. However, the demons like Kamsa and Sisupala and other demons, they were some of them. They were always in rapt attention. They were always worried about Krishna. Kamsa was always worried Krishna is going to come and kill him, and Sisupala is full of disdain for Krishna. However, they were thinking about Krishna always in an unfavorable way. So there's a difference between thinking about Krishna always in a favorable way and thinking about Krishna always in an unfavorable way. Even though they're thinking about Krishna in an unfavorable way, still they get the mercy of Krishna, the demons. However, when one thinks in a favorable way about Krishna and always is working for the pleasure of Krishna through the instructions of the spiritual master, they are classified as pure devotees. Now, Vidura himself did make some mistakes. However, he's considered a pure devotee because he never deviated in thinking about Krishna. And although he got mixed up sometimes with the demons, like Kamsa, however, he remained determined not to deviate from Krishna consciousness. So that's it's difficult to understand, because sometimes he did things that didn't seem to be Krishna conscious. Just like Arjuna sometimes did something that didn't seem to be Krishna conscious, like refusing to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. But he didn't refuse to listen and ask questions to Krishna to clear away his doubts. So sometimes devotees make mistakes, but they're not against getting those mistakes, let's say, corrected by receiving instructions, whereas the demons, they make mistakes and they refuse to get their mistakes corrected and get information how to overcome that mentality of not acting favorably for Krishna. So that's a major difference between demons and devotees. Devotees will make mistakes also, but however, they will ask advice how to correct them, and they'll actually work on correcting those mistakes. So there's a major difference between demons and devotees. Although both can be engaged in rapt attention on the Lord, one out of fear or envy or hatred, and the other out of pure love and devotion. So everything depends on the motive. Just like when there's a court case for murder, and they're trying to decide what was the motive of the murderer. Was his act of murder premeditated? Did it happen as an act of passion? Or was it done accidentally? without intention of actually killing someone. So there's different degrees of murder. Murder in first degree, second degree, third degree. And the punishment is different in each level of the intention. So Krishna is present as Paramatma. He's in the heart of every living entity. So he can understand the intention of the person who commits a sinful activity. Now this is explained in depth more in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it says, 14th and 15th verses, Nadate kashichit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhu ajnanena vritam yana tena muyanti jantavaha. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Sanskrit word vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. He is always satisfied in himself, undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life, and thereby his chain of action and reaction begins. So this is the key point. Everything depends on our desire. So Krishna does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life. And thereby his chain of action and reaction begins. A living entity is, by superior nature, full of knowledge. Nevertheless, he is prone to be influenced by ignorance due to his limited power. So, our original state is Anandamaya Bhyasat, full of transcendental bliss and knowledge. But we're prone to be influenced by ignorance because we are not omnipotent like Krishna. So, how do we become influenced by ignorance? We become attracted to something. And that takes our attention off of Krishna. And as we keep going toward that thing, just like a person who has a toothache, their tongue always goes toward the toothache. You see. So when you have an attraction to something, your mind always seems to wander to that thing, even though it may not be Krishna conscious. The Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not. The Lord is vibhu, or omniscient, meaning knowing everything. But the living entity is anu, or atomic. Therefore, he is a living soul. Because he is a living soul, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. Such desire is fulfilled only by the omnipotent Lord. So in other words, even if we want to do nonsense, we can't do it without the help of the Lord. Because our mind, our intelligence, our senses, they're all controlled by the modes of material nature. And as long as we feel attracted to the material nature in some way or other, it can be many different ways. Like one person is attracted to cricket. Another person is attracted to the stock market. Another person is attracted to sense gratification. Another person is attracted to politics. See? So there are millions of ways that you can be attracted. And as long as you're attracted to something and do not see its connection to Krishna, then you deviate by desire. It's not that you deviate because you were forced, You deviate by desire. No one can force you. Like, for example, there was one man in India. He was called, his name was Surendranath, right? Nath, right? N-A-T-H, right? So the British called him Surrender Not, right? Because he refused to surrender to the British in any way. That was his nickname. That's not what his name means. Surrender Not means that he is the. It's the name of Krishna, right? He's not. He's the like Ishwara, and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it has nothing to do with the word surrender or the word not, but it sounds a little bit like that. So and because of his resistance to the British, they named him Surrender Not. It's called a pun. A pun is some variation of pronunciation that also changes the meaning of the word, and it's a way of joking around with or making fun of people. So we cannot even perform sinful activity without the help of Krishna. So it says, and so when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires. But the Lord is never responsible for the actions and reactions of the particular situation. Just like a child says to the father, I want to have ice cream. I want to have ice cream. So finally, the father says, okay, you can have ice cream. Even though the father knows that in some situations it's not good for the child, but still, because the child is insisting and crying and making a scene, they give him some candy or they give him some ice cream or whatever. So in the same way, we're no different than that child. As long as our mind is dwelling on something that is not related to Krishna, or everything is related to Krishna, but we want to use it in a selfish way, and we keep thinking about it and insisting on it, well, eventually Krishna makes the arrangement so we can do that nonsense. So that means that we're bewildered by our desires, or in our desires, and eventually the Lord allows the devotee to fulfill those desires. But the Lord is never responsible for the actions and reactions of a particular situation. You can't blame Krishna. Krishna forced me to eat meat. No, he didn't force you to eat meat. Oh, Krishna forced me to have illicit sex. No, he didn't force you to do that. But because your mind dwelled on it, and eventually Krishna said, okay, that's what you want, and I'll help you get it. So that's why it says that man desires and God, God disposes. So if you desire something enough, then Krishna will say, okay, then here's the opportunity. But he doesn't force you. So it says that the Lord is never responsible for the actions and reactions of the particular situation which may be desired. So everything depends on our desire. Being in a bewildered condition, therefore, the embodied soul identifies himself with the circumstantial material body and becomes subjected to the temporary misery and happiness of life. So as soon as we identify with the body, whatever happens to the body affects us. Whereas our soul is never really subject to the happiness and distress in the material world. But yet, due to that false identification, we get affected. Just like you might buy a new car, and as soon as you drive out of the car dealership, somebody runs into you. And you get really upset. And you get out of your car and say, what? Why, you nonsense. I just bought this car, and it's the first time I've driven it, and immediately you ran into me. Well, why are you getting so upset? Nothing happened to you. But yes, something did happen to you because you extended your identification to the car. So whatever happened to the car, you become affected by it. You see? So, therefore, the embodied soul identifies himself with the circumstantial material body and becomes subjected to the temporary misery and happiness of life. The Lord, just like you at a certain point, your 401k is at $400,000. And you're thinking, I'm so secure now. My future is absolutely protected. And, if I ever need any extra money, I can just take it from my 401k and I have no problems. And when I retire, I'm going to go live in Goa and be on the beach every day and have a nice house. And right, all these things are going on in your mind. And all of a sudden the stock market crashes and your 401k goes down to minus $400,000, right? And you say, oh my God, what happened? I mean, I had so much money. And you tell your friends, I had so much money. I had all this money, but now I have nothing. So you see, one is affected by these false identifications and attachments. And although the soul is not affected, but yet through the confused mind, one becomes affected because of lack of attachment to Krishna and attachment to something else that you see separate from Krishna. So the Lord is a constant companion of the living entity as Paramatma, or the Supersoul, and therefore he can understand the desires of the individual soul as one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. The Lord fulfills his desire as he deserves. All these are big statements. Every one of these statements here is monumental. Man proposes and God disposes. So man proposes, that is, one is desiring something, and God says, okay, you want that? Here, I'll give you a situation in which it looks like you can get it, but it's up to you to decide whether you want it or not, whether you want me or you want something separate from me. Nothing is separate from Krishna, but one can think that it's separate from Krishna, and they can think that they can enjoy it without offering to Krishna. The individual is not, therefore, omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. Yeah, even if you want to sin, you have to have Krishna's help. You can't do it on your own. Okay. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute, independent living entities. So if our mind dwells on nonsense, eventually the Lord says, okay, because you're thinking about this all the time, you can't take your mind off of it. Now here's an opportunity. If you want it, take it. So it depends on what you want. It depends on how you are thinking about things. It depends on your desires. And if you get confused and desire things to be enjoyed independent of the Lord, then you become trapped by Maya. Or we become trapped by Maya. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. The Vedic hymns therefore declare Esa u hi eva sadhu karma karyati tam yam ebyo loke bya unin isate. Esa u eva sadhu karma karyati yam adho ninishate. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. And this is in the Kositaki Upanishad 3.8. Ajno jantur aniso yam atmana sukhaduka hayo. Ishwara perito gachet swargam vas vabram evacha. The living entity is completely dependent in his distress and happiness. By the will of the Supreme, he can go to heaven or hell, as a cloud is driven by the air. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience. And, under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. Yeah, it's all Krishna's fault, not my fault. Yeah, Krishna forced me to do this. Krishna did this. Krishna made beautiful women or handsome men. You know, it's his fault that I was attracted. It's not my fault, right? You see. So this is the advanced stage of illusion by the living entity, by us. We want to blame Krishna for our own mistakes. So there was once a devil, and the devil was trying to teach this young kid how to be a devil. So one day they were watching this one man who was very rich, and he had a big mansion, and he had beautiful gardens, and he had some very, very attractive animals, like rams. Rams are very beautiful goats with so many complicated horns, and they're very attractive. So the devil told his son, he said, "Son," he said, "this is the way we create mayhem." The son said, "What's mayhem, Dad?" He said, "I'll show you." So it so happened that the man had this beautiful mansion, and in the entrance of the mansion there was a big mirror, right? Not blocking the door, but against the wall. But the wall is where you enter, and then there's this wall, and then you turn, let's say, right, and you enter the house. So there was this big mirror there. So one day, the owner of the house forgot to close the door. So the door was open, and you could see the mirror. And he would let his prize animals, there was some, there was a ram, and which is a big male goat, and very handsome and powerful. And there were some other animals like sheep and etc. So one day he left the door open by mistake, and the ram saw his own picture in the mirror. Right. And he thought it was another ram that was infringing on his territory, because he has all his girlfriends and etc. And he thought, oh, this is another ram. And he's come into my territory. So he ran straight into that mirror, going through the open door right into the mirror, and that mirror was very expensive also, and there were also some very expensive vases and things on a table right next to it and so forth. And he broke everything. And the owner, when he saw what happened, he was shocked. He got so angry. And he went and killed the ram. Right. And then he realized, oh my God, what did I do? I mean, it's a prize ram. He's worth $100,000, right? And so the devil looked at his son and smiled, and he said, you see, this is how we do things. So it's all due to false attachment, and then due to that false attachment, whatever you're attached to, if it gets destroyed, you become extremely angry, and then you destroy other things that you're attached to, right? So you become your own enemy by making mistakes and being attached to things in an unnecessary way and becoming proud of wealth or power or beauty or whatever. So, therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience or ignorance. So, what is it? It's due to the littleness of his existence. What does that mean, littleness of existence? We have an eternal soul, and Krishna is bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest. He's everywhere present. There's nothing independent of the Lord. But we become, by the littleness of our existence, how do we become little? It's by becoming attached to temporary things. So the more you're attached to temporary things, the more you little your existence, right? Just like someone may be attached to a cache of money that they have in their house. So they hide it and are always worried about people finding out about it. They never talk about it. Or sometimes they might tell a friend, but the friend might tell someone else. And then that person, having that knowledge that this person is keeping, let's say, 15 lakhs under his bed, right? Now, how did he know that? Because the friend told a friend. I mean, the man who has that money told a friend and told him, don't ever tell anyone. And that person immediately goes to another person and said, hey, I got a secret. Don't tell anybody. You promise it? Yeah, I promise it. He said, so-and-so has 15 lakhs under his bed. He said, oh, really? Oh, I won't tell anyone. No, he won't tell anyone. He'll go and arrange to, if when that person is away from their house, to rob the house. You see? So, by this, hiding the black money from the government, right? One littles their existence and is always worried no one can find out about it. But they tell somebody that they think they trust, right? And then that person says, no, I'll never tell anyone, and then right away they go and tell somebody else. And say, I promise not to tell anyone. No, yeah, I promise, right? So no one can keep a secret. Let's put it like that. It's impossible for people to keep secrets, right? Eventually they will reveal it. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. The Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34 also confirms this. Vaishamya naigrinye na supek sattvat tata hi darsayati. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, though he appears to. So people say, oh, Krishna must not like me because he let this thing happen or he let that thing happen. No, he didn't let anything happen. You desired it. And because you desired it, he said he creates a situation in which you can fulfill that desire if you really want it, even though it's detrimental for you. So this is a very important verse in Bhagavad Gita, and it explains here the difference between a devotee and a demon. The demon will make mistakes, and the devotee will make mistakes. But the demon will refuse to get advice how to atone for those mistakes and give them up. But the devotee will always ask a spiritual authority, please help me. I don't know why I'm making these mistakes, but I'm making them all the time. What can I do to stop this? Right. So that's the difference. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? No, he received mercy, but not the same level. Right? He merged into the body of Krishna. So there's two types of merging. One is merge into Brahma Jyoti, which is the effulgence of Krishna, or you can merge into the body of Krishna. But the mercy shown to Arjuna is different than the mercy shown to Sisupala. Arjuna has the constant association on a personal level with the Lord. And Sisupala has this impersonal merging where he doesn't understand his intimate relationship with the Lord. Right? He has a relationship. Everybody has a relationship with Krishna. You can't escape that. But there's different levels of relationship. So he gets that impersonal liberation, but Arjuna has personal association and interactions with the Lord, loving interactions with the Lord. Haribol, thank you very much. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Ki Jai.